The horror began with the animal killing 2 goats and then attacking 2 farmers. And your options are begun on, begun for, began, beginning with, no correction required. And Manas says that the place where he checked the answer was given as option 2, but he thinks that we can also go ahead with option 4. Now, before I actually discuss this, I want to see what is the answer according to most of you sitting out there. Most of you sitting out there, what do you think the answer to this question is? 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5? The horror began with the animal killing 2 goats and then attacking 2 farmers. So basically, began with. Should it be begun on? Should it be begun for? Should it be began to? Beginning with? No correction required. A lot of you are saying for. The horror beginning with. The horror began with. Well, began with is what is there. Yes, the answer here is 4. Now, considering where Manas got this question from, their option 4 was correct. My earnest request to all of you is that use the internet to practice questions, but trust answers only that come from very, very reliable sources. Do not just believe any answer that you see. Yes, Aman, we can see a lot of high fives that you want to give us. The answer is indeed part 5. Why not 4? Okay. Now, beginning with, if you see ing is the continuous form of the verb, whereas we know that the animal has already killed 2 goats and then he attacked 2 farmers. There are 2 goats and then there are 2 farmers who have already been attacked and already been killed. Therefore, ing will not make sense here at all.
Confusing questions, please explain, ma'am. Okay, let's see. Many Indian companies import components from China as they are cheap compared to those manufactured locally. So I'm assuming, looking at the options, that the highlighted phrase is as they are cheap, right? Options are as they are cheap as, because it is cheaper, since these are cheaper, which is cheap, no correction required. So as they are cheap is the highlighted phrase. Options are given. I will give you a clue, right? The options, so some of you are saying 2, some of you are saying 1. Any other options? Let's eliminate 4. We'll just look at the first 3 options. Okay, so quickly, right? So my clue words are obviously what? One clue word is components. Another clue word is there is comparison happening. Compared to those manufactured locally, which means there is a comparison happening with the products manufactured locally. So having said that, now if you go back and look at it, I've given you both the clue words. Compared to those manufactured locally, I need a what form? Degree of comparison. What form do I need? Do I need a positive form, comparative form or superlative form? Obviously, I need the comparative form. Which option is giving me that? I have only 2 options. Option 2, option 3. Rule out option 1. Out. I have to choose between option 2 and option 3. Now tell me, out of these 2 options, which is the correct one? Many Indian companies import components from China as they are cheap compared to those manufactured locally. I stressed on another clue word for you, so you will get the components, and the second one, it's saying it singular, but components is plural noun form. These are more appropriate. That is why it is option 3. Right? So many Indian companies import components from China since these are cheaper compared to those manufactured locally. That is why that's the answer. That's why I kept reiterating that components. Right? The comparative adjective is correct in 2 and 3. But the plural number, noun number is not correct. Why can't it be option 1? If I have to use option 1, I'll have to reconstruct the sentence, right? Rephrase the sentence. Many Indian companies import components from China as they are cheap as. First of all, I have limited information. The information is not complete for me to use option 1. And are as cheap as, that's the right positive form, right? As, adjective, as. So first of all, it's not in the right positive form. So that's why I can't use option 1. It's not in the right form. The information in the context is incomplete for me to use that construction, right? And having looked at all of the other options, option 3 is our answer. Next one, he had not, ought to do it. Okay, let's look at our options. Has not, ought to do, ought not have done, ought not has done, ought not have done. Okay, now ought to, right, we know is modal, obviously, right, giving us the same meaning as close to should. So the collocation is ought to have done something or ought not to have done something, right? This is the collocation as such. You ought to have done something, which means you should have done it. It was the right thing to do, but you didn't do it. Ought not to have done something, I shouldn't have done it. Right? It was not the right thing to do. So now that we know the construction, let me give you some example sentences. If I say, you ought to have listened to the warnings, right? Ought to have. I ought not to have, let's say, taken the money. Now, right? If I go and look at the options, has not, ought to do, incorrect. Ought not, had done, incorrect. Ought not, has done, incorrect. Ought not, have done. That seems like the closest one, but since it doesn't have to, I feel like all of the options are incorrect here. He had or he ought not to have done it. Or even if some constructions may not go with to. So it could be, I think the closest one that comes to being the answer is option 4, if you ask me, right? But still, I would construct the sentence saying he ought not to have done it, right? With to. Fourth one does not have to, basically. He ought not to have done it, he ought not have done it, right? That's the closest one, I think, if you ask me. But I wouldn't answer this question because for me the right construction is he ought not to have done it with the preposition to. Yeah, sometimes the answers are incorrect. So I don't want to go by the sources. I'm going to go with what the actual construction is, right? And somebody asked what's a collocation. Collocation, I've kind of repeated this like a million times. Collocations are fixed expressions that are used repeatedly, right? So just to give you some examples, if I say widely accepted, narrow escape, highly controversial, right? These are all collocations. Why? These are fixed expressions people have used repeatedly in various contexts, right? So you have different types of collocations, like adverb plus verb, adverb plus adjective, adjective plus noun. So collocation list in your vocabulary section, if you scroll down, there's a idioms and collocations list. The same is also available in the reference material. That's the first material handout. Please go through that. Learn as many collocations as possible. It's very useful for fill in the blanks and close passage questions, right? They is referring to these only. In the following question, a part of the paragraph or sentence has been in bold. From the choices given to you, you are required to choose the one which would best replace blah blah blah. Okay, let's see. The tendency to eat late though it has never been tested properly. So these are basically sentence improvement questions, right? And the part that is in bold is many nutritionists believe as a factor in putting on weight. So if you look at this context, you can immediately, logically eliminate option A and B. In fact, whatever is highlighted in the given sentence is what is repeated in option A. Oh no, it's slightly different. Option A has to be a factor. Given sentence has as a factor. Either ways, the tendency to eat late though it has never been tested properly. Now this is the belief, right? If this is the belief, the tendency to eat late though it has never been tested properly is believed by many nutritionists to be a factor in putting on weight. Option C. But why can't it be option D? Is believed by many nutritionists as a factor in putting on weight. Because of the collocation. There is a collocation, right? Someone or something is believed to be. Right? Which means what? This is the general opinion of most people. That something is true, although it has not been proved, right? So the tendency to eat late, though it has never been tested properly, is believed by many nutritionists to be a factor in putting on weight. So just to give you an example sentence with this construction, right? If I say, third man is missing and is believed to be or believed to have been taken into police custody, right? Because of the collocation, the right construction is C. The tendency to eat late, though it has never been tested properly. This belief is believed to by many nutritionists to be the factor in putting on weight.